Hi everyone, this is Ed from Runnable, and this is my first run review of the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Tokyo. Now in this review I'll be giving you the lowdown on this shoe. I'll be letting you know what it felt like to run in this shoe. I've done about 20k now in this shoe, so I've got an idea. Still not completely formalised my thoughts on it, but I've got a good idea, first impressions of the shoe. I'll let you know how it compares to the Sky Tokyo and also the previous version of this shoe, the Edge Paris. So I'm in Green Park this morning, and I've got the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Tokyos on my feet, breaking them in. Still deciding whether to use these in the 10k I've got coming up in a week and a half or so, to decide whether these are going to be my shoe of choice. And the jury is still out a little bit with these actually. When I first put them on yesterday, I felt like they were a lot bouncier and softer than the Sky Tokyos, but actually now I'm starting to wonder a bit, because they do feel quite like I've got a lot of foam under my foot. It's soft, it's the elite foam, so it's soft, but I don't feel like I'm engaging the plate at all, which with the Sky you definitely feel that little ping forward. What I do like about this one is you do get that kind of roll through, like I mentioned before, that rocketed roll through when you land. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's as pronounced as the Cielo, for instance, the X1 2.0, which is a lot more pronounced than this shoe. But it's a nice early stage rocker. It's a lot less slappy than the Sky. So in that respect, it kind of suits the way I run a little bit more. I'm kind of tempering my thoughts a little bit because I've literally got back from holidays and my legs feel horrible at the moment. My Achilles feel sore. My foot hurts a little bit. Feels like a little bit of plantar in my right foot, which means I'm up on my toes a lot more than I might normally be for these kind of runs. And yeah, we'll see. Did I just see someone famous then cycling past? I think I might have done. Well, we'll see. I'll have to re-watch that video. Anyway, no spoilers there. We'll see. But anyway, I feel like it's a really nice, still a really nice ride, this shoe. What I would say though, I spoke to a guy in my local cafe today called Warren, who was telling me all about his story, how he used to be a lot heavier and he's got himself right down in weight. Nice guy, had a good chat, really nice story about how running's turned it around for him in terms of health and physique and everything. He's just here, I don't know if he was on holiday, I think he's normally out, I think he said in the Far East. So, but he stopped to talk to me because he saw the shoes, and funnily enough, when I told him my channel, he kind of recognised me then, I think. Yeah. But yeah, sort of Warren, he asked me about these shoes, and I said to him what I'll say to you guys. if you've got the Sky Paris or the Edge Paris, I wouldn't necessarily rush out to get these. Yes, they are maybe a touch better, but when I say better, I mean they're a touch more, like they're less firm. For those who found those a bit too firm. But I think in terms of performance, I think jury's out a bit. I don't know what I feel about the performance. I mean, I need to race in them, don't I? But I'm not sure in the first few runs that they necessarily feel more performant than the Edge Paris or the Sky Paris. Maybe I need to break this big slab of FF Leap foam in a little bit. I'm not the heaviest of runners, as I've mentioned before, but at the moment I think the jury's out a little bit in terms of these shoes. I like them, but they're not. I'm not getting that absolute wow factor that I got. That I got with these yellows, for instance, with that Piba foam, which is so nice and bouncy, propulsive. I'm not getting that, but I think these are an efficient shoe, good shoe to run fast in, and I'm sure once I've run in them a bit, broken them down a little bit more, they'll come to life. But at the moment, based on the first couple of runs, which is never a good thing to base a lot on, but I'll give you my opinion after these few runs. Slightly preferring the Sky, I think, which surprises me because this should be more of my kind of shoe with that early stage rocker. But the Sky definitely feel like I'm engaging the plate a lot more, feeling that little ping. You get that nice pitter patter, but it is a bit more slappy, whereas this is more of a roll through. But I think some of it is, like I said, due to the fact I just got back from holiday. My legs feel a bit all over the place from the flight. Also, just in general, I didn't do much strength and conditioning out there. I didn't have a gym, so my legs feel a bit in bits at the moment. So I need to take it very careful at the moment. Try not to do too much and do the right kind of strength and conditioning, so I could easily get injured. I feel like I might have a bit of plantar in my heel, like I said earlier, because that really feels a bit sore when I land there at the moment, which is meaning that I'm predominantly up on my forefoot, which will mean my calves take a bit of a battering. So you've just got to be careful when you've got any slight niggles. It makes you start running a different way to what you might normally run, and then it can cause problems in other areas. I need to start doing those stretching and strength and conditioning routines that I didn't do when I was away, and they should be fine. Probably take a couple of down days from running and sort that out, maybe at the weekend. Well, I do want to do a park run, so probably not. But anyway, all in all, I think, like I said, I do like this shoe. Sorry for giving off negative vibes. I do really like it. Just not quite sure it's so much of an upgrade on the Paris to make me think I would definitely recommend this to people. But we will see. And that's me for a while. Going to do a quick run at lunchtime around Battersea Park, and I'll give you some more thoughts. See you later. Bye bye. So I just thought I'd do a little bit extra filming because I'm down a road called Beauchamp Place, and what a nice road this is. I've been down here not often, but what nice cafes, restaurants. You find now and again when you run through London, you find roads that you've never been down before. This is one of them. Nice pub over there, the Beauchamp. Marouche, I think it's famous Moroccan restaurant or Indian restaurant. But yeah, Japanese restaurant there. Anyway, see you later dudes, bye bye. Okay, so I'm now in the familiar setting of Battersea Park. Again, running in my Metaspeed Edge Tokyos. I think the thing I'm struggling a bit with this shoe and with the Sky Tokyo is I'm feeling slightly underwhelmed with them, if I'm being honest. And I think the reason I'm thinking that is not because they're bad shoes. I mean, by no means are they bad, they're pretty good. But it feels like I've been here before. It doesn't, to me, feel that much different to the Sky and the Edge Paris. And that's what feels underwhelming. I mean, just the fact they looked almost identical doesn't help either. They could at least come up with a slightly different design and look and feel. I mean, it obviously is a little bit different. It's not that much different, to be honest. The upper's almost identical, and even though you've got this FF Leap, the aliphatic TPU, I'm not really sensing a huge amount of difference in terms of the ride in this shoe. If anything, I feel like the Edge Paris might be a little bit quicker. There's slightly less sinking and more of an aggressive roll through. That's just my initial thoughts. It has improved the more I've run in it. So, you know, this will be, I don't know, getting on to 20k now. So, it's not a bad run to get an idea of a shoe. But I'm sure this foam will break in a little bit and it will start to feel even more lively as I go. As I've mentioned quite a few times, I'm not the heaviest of runners, about 63 kg, fairly slight of build, kind of 5'9", not a big guy. And yeah, this, I mean, feels good, but nothing remarkable. I mean, if I compare this to the Puma Fastar Nitro Elite 3, which when I put that on, I had that wow factor. You know, it felt a bit firmer, but it had that factor. You're putting on a crazy shoe here one that's designed for all-out speed. Doesn't feel like that with this shoe or even the Sky Tokyo. They feel like a fairly standard running shoe with very nice foam in it. So I think that's been the biggest difference for me, how they felt. They've not felt remarkable, and that's what I was kind of hoping. Maybe the Ray is the shoe that will do that from ASICS, given how light it is, given that it's all FF Leap. Maybe, but at the moment I'm not completely blown away by these shoes, and I have to say, for those of you with Sky Paris or Edge Paris and you liking those shoes, I wouldn't be rushing out to buy the Tokyo versions. Don't think there's enough difference to make it worth that £240, which is the other thing, have gone up in price, and I would expect even more of an improvement than you get in here, given the price differential. I mean, honestly, I think if you raced in these shoes or either of the Paris shoes, I think you're looking at marginal differences, and it may not be in the favour of the Tokyo shoe. Certainly with the Edge Paris, that felt like a supremely fast shoe. I'm not exactly feeling exactly the same confidence in the Edge Tokyo, if I'm being honest. But these are early impressions, and as I always say, you've got to take them with a pinch of salt. Things change a lot over the lifetime of a running shoe, and I suspect it will with this shoe, the Edge Tokyo. At the moment, if I had to pick my favourite between the Sky and the Edge, I'm going to slightly favour the Sky. I'm engaging that plate, as you would expect, because it's higher up. Yeah, it's probably feels a bit bouncier, a bit more lively. The only thing I would say is I do like the rocker in this shoe. I wonder what this shoe would feel like with a high plate configuration but a more aggressive rocker. Would it be too uncontrollable, like the bounce and also the roll? I don't know, maybe that's why they don't do it. But I would like to see with the next Edge the plate slightly higher up, so us lighter runners engage it a bit more. It doesn't need to be as high up or as flat as with the Sky, but if it is a bit higher up, there's not so much foam in between your foot and the plate, then I think the shoe would feel a bit livelier. You'd get the benefit of the plate, the pop you get from the plate, but also the roll through from the rocker for those that like that earlier stage rocker. I'd like to see that. Whether they're brave enough to do it, not so sure. We'll see. But it is a good shoe. Honestly, folks, if you haven't got the Paris and you're looking for a really good lightweight running shoe that's speedy, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the most stable shoe in the world, but it's far more stable than, say, the Hoka Yellow X1 2.0, probably as stable as the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 3, but not as crazy. So if you're looking for something a bit more standard racing shoe, you can't go wrong with this or the Sky. Your selection between this and the Sky will be purely down to whether you like the geometry of an early stage rocker, if you like this huge wedge of foam in between your foot and the plate, and like less bounce but more roll, you go with the Edge. If you like a more bouncy, slappy, propulsive ride, Sky's the one. And that is pretty much how I view the two shoes. Does this Edge make me want to increase my cadence? Yes, a little bit, but that's overstated, I think. Does the Sky have more vertical bounce? Yes, it does. But yeah, again, it's a bit overstated. The main difference is where the plate is and the geometry of the shoe, and that will come down to your taste. Do you like a bouncy ride, Sky? Firmer but rolling ride, Edge. And that, folks, is as complicated as you need to know. See you later, guys. Bye bye. Let's go into some key stats. So with this shoe, we have a weight of 165 grams. So strangely, that's almost 20 grams lighter than the Sky Tokyo, which I have around 184 grams. So that's first and foremost a bit odd to me. They're very similar looking shoes, but the Edge is almost 20 grams lighter, which was a bit of a surprise. So that's a good thing. For those who like running who actually purchased the Edge, you've got a lighter shoe than the Sky Tokyo. In terms of stack height, just like with the Sky Tokyo, you've got 39.5 millimeters in the heel. Looks actually more than that, but so it looks like a huge wedge, but it is 39.5 in the heel. Mine's a UK size 9, just in case you're wondering. And you've got 34.5 in the forefoot, giving you that 5 millimeter drop. So it's, in theory, a fairly flat shoe. It feels kind of flat, not as flat as the Sky Tokyo. Go through some of the reasons why that is in terms of the geometry. I should say I'm a UK size 9. This fits me true to size. It's quite a narrow forefoot area, but somehow that kind of works because the material is quite malleable. It moves to your foot shape. The upper in itself is quite a nice upper. It's very light, very lightweight mesh material. Very similar, to be honest, to the previous version, Paris. If you want to know a comparison with the weight, by the way, this is up at 196. As I said, this was 165. So it's quite a big difference from the previous version. So that's one area where this does stand out from its previous version. But with the upper, it's very similar. Tongue is almost identical. You've got the same ridged laces. You've got less padding around the heel collar, which is, you can see there, you've got quite a lot of padding there. Here, you've got it coming halfway and it's not as thick. So that's some of the areas where they've shaved off some weight. But all in all, really like the upper. You can't quite splay your feet, but there's enough room there, just about enough room for it to be okay. It's got like a semi-rigid heel counter. I had no problems with my Achilles whatsoever. And the lockdown was pretty good. I think it's not quite as good as the Edge Paris, but it's not bad. I had to do, you can see there, I did a runner's knot. So I did that and it kept my foot nicely in place. But I do feel it's not quite as good a lockdown as the Edge Paris for me. So that's the upper. In terms of outsole, again, very similar to the previous version, almost identical to the Edge Paris. It's almost identical to the Sky Tokyo. You can see the main differences are the colour and obviously where you've got this cutout here in the Sky, you've got this in the heel, and that's just to give the foam somewhere to go. I think it's a bit gimmicky. It's kind of saying, well, people in the Edge are going to land more in their heel, and the foam will need somewhere to expand, and it will come out through this hole. But I feel like that's not a great way of looking at it. And lots of people will use this Edge Tokyo, but they won't land here. They'll land much further forward. So although I understand why they've done this, for the foam to compress and decompress, and you get that nice energy, you know, it's not held by the outsole rubber here. It has somewhere to go. I understand the logic. I think it's a little bit flawed just to put it there, because lots of people are going to land elsewhere in this shoe. But outsole's really grippy actually, and it's quite nice for once not to have a huge cutout somewhere. Helps with the stability. It's quite narrow base. I think it's a little bit wider though than the Sky or Edge Paris. So I think they've actually thought about that a little bit and made it slightly a wider base, which is going to help with stability. So that's the outsole. I would give this, if you were going to score it, if you're going to score the upper, I would give that upper 4.5 out of 5. If you score the outsole, I would definitely give this a 4.5, maybe even a 5. I like the fact it's got no cutout. I like the grippiness of this material. The only thing I might score it half a mark down for is this quite a lot of exposed foam here. So if you hit that with rocks and various other things, then it's gonna start to degrade. But by and large, it's a really nice outsole. Now for the midsole, this is where it gets interesting. So you've got these dual combination of foams. You've got the FF Leap here, you can see from the purple mark here, and that's got, so purple and red here, and that plate scoops down, you can see there. So you've got a lower configuration of the plate than you have with the Sky. You can see the difference there. The Sky is flatter and higher. This is one of the key differences. The Edge is lower and scooped. Okay, what that means is you've got a lot more of this softer foam, bouncier foam, this aliphatic TPU under your forefoot before you hit the plate. And at the bottom, as a stabilizing agent, you've got the firmer FF Turbo Plus foam. In the heel though, you've got much more of this FF Plus Turbo foam, and far less of this Leap foam, the aliphatic TPU. So in theory, that would mean that for people who land on the heel, it's a little bit more stable, and it's on the forefoot, it's a little bit more bouncy and a little bit more of a wilder ride. But that's a theory. That's not actually what I'm experiencing. We'll go and talk about that in a minute. But if you understand the key differences here, between the Sky Tokyo and the Edge Tokyo, is that lower plate configuration, that massive amount of FF Leap below the forefoot and midfoot, and the lack of that foam in the heel area, giving you a firmer, more stable ride in the heel. And as you transition from heel to forefoot, you get that more bouncy, energy responsive FF Leap foam, which is that aliphatic TPU. If that makes sense. One of the other key differences, and this is what I think actually is the key difference between the shoes, is the geometry of the shoes. So with the Sky Tokyo, you have this later stage rocker, and this is the Edge, this is the Sky. This has got this earlier stage rocker in the Edge. You've got this later stage rocker. You can see it going up there in the Sky. So what that actually means is, for those of you that land sort of midfoot to this area, as soon as you land, you're going to engage that rocker in the Edge Tokyo. So for me, that's the key difference, really. It's the geometry of the two shoes. So for those who use the Sky Tokyo, you don't engage that rocker until a lot later in the process. So this feels a lot more, to me, when I land, flatter and a bit more slappier, a bit more pingier because of that higher plate. I engage the plate in the Sky Tokyo far more than when I'm running in the Edge, where the plate sits a lot lower and I get that nice roll through. This feels weirdly, and I say weirdly because of all that FF Leap foam, I expected it to feel soft under the forefoot. It doesn't. It feels firmer to me than the Sky. Yeah, I'm feeling it a lot firmer in the forefoot than I expected. Like I said, with the Leap foam, I expected it to be softer. I don't feel it that soft. Maybe I need to break it in a little bit. I do feel the rocker there, and because it's a bit firmer than with the Sky Tokyo, I do get that nice roll through in this shoe. But those expecting a really soft ride because of all this Leap foam in the forefoot, unless you're really heavy, a heavier runner, heavier than me anyway, I'm 5'9", 63, 64 kg. I didn't find it that soft. I found it not firm, but I found it on the firmer side compared to, say, the Hoka Cielo X1 2.0 or even the Puma Faststar Nitro Elite 3. I found it maybe a tad firmer than that, similar, which makes sense because they've both got the aliphatic TPU. But like I said, lots of people are saying use the Edge for heel striking, use the Sky forefoot striking. Lots of other people are saying it's to do with cadence for the Edge, bounding runners for the Sky. And that was, we've been through all this before with the Parises. And I feel like the real key here to home in on is the plate configuration, how low it is in the Edge and how high it is in the Sky. And also geometry of the shoe, how this has got an early stage rocker and this has got a later stage rocker. So if you like that feeling where when you land, it's almost you're landing on a curve and you're rolling through, you do get launch forward, but it's very much a launch forward and not so much in the air. You'll love the Edge. If you like that kind of more pitter-patter, flatter feel when you land, and you get a bit more, you like that bit more bounce, that vertical bounce and forward motion, but more vertical and forward rather than just forward like you've got with the Edge, you're going to like the Sky Tokyo, the feel of this more. What's interesting is I thought this would be the more bouncy shoe, the Edge Tokyo, but I'm finding the Sky is more bouncy. I thought the Edge would have a bit more energy return because of all this FF Leap foam that you get under the forefoot. I'm finding I get more energy return from the Sky. What I do get with the Edge is that nice roll through. So those of you that like that rockered ride experience, I think you're probably going to like the Edge more. One word of caution, like I'm finding, I'm lighter, so I am not engaging that plate anywhere near as much in the Edge as I am Sky. That makes kind of sense. I'll need to break down this foam a little bit. You may have a completely different experience to me if you're a heavier runner and you compress the foam enough to engage the plate. I'm not getting that at the moment, and I think that's why for me the Edge is feeling a little bit firmer at the moment compared to the Sky. On the run, I like the run. I think the problem I'm having with this shoe at the moment is it doesn't feel like a special shoe. It feels like a really good shoe, but it feels like a shoe that we've seen before. We have seen it before because it's very reminiscent of the Edge Paris. Similar sort of geometries there. The key difference is the foam. Obviously, there's no FF Leap aliphatic TPU in this shoe. That's the main difference, but it doesn't feel completely different to that shoe. Whereas when I put the Puma Faststar Nitro Elite 3 on, that felt like a completely insane shoe, a shoe that like was a combination of the Alpha Fly and the Sky Paris in one shoe. It felt special. The Edge Tokyo and the Sky Tokyo, they don't feel like that. They don't feel like incredible shoes to me. They feel like really good shoes, a nice evolution of the Paris series, but they don't feel like a huge leap, pardon my pun, from the previous version, despite having this Leap foam here. And that's my only issue with it. I'm slightly underwhelmed with both of them. Maybe that'll change with the Ray. But all in all, I think they're fabulous shoes. If you haven't got the Paris shoes, or the Paris shoes are coming to an end of their life cycle, then by all means, if you like them, get the Tokyo. If you own the Paris shoe though, I would be guarded on whether you actually need the Tokyos at all, the Edge or the Sky, because I think there's not a huge amount of difference between these shoes and this shoe. Obviously, weight wise, there's quite a big difference in terms of 30 grams there, but apart from that, they feel very similar to me. If anything, the Edge Paris actually might be a little bit quicker. It feel a little bit quicker than the Edge Tokyo. You get a little bit more compression in here, but I'm getting less of a quick decompression than I did in the Sky. But that could just be to do with the fact that I haven't worn these enough, I haven't run in these enough to compress the foam enough yet. And because I'm lighter, that makes sense to me. So all in all, great shoes. Stability wise, it feels pretty stable to me. You've got some sole flare here, and all in all, I think the base has become a little bit wider. There's not really sidewalls or anything like that to keep your foot in place, but it doesn't feel unstable to me. Durability wise, we won't know. I'm imagining because of all this exposed foam, won't be the most durable shoe, but I don't think it'll be particularly bad either. I think it's kind of in the middle somewhere. Price wise, gone up £20. That's not a good thing, and that's why I'm saying if you've got still good use out of your Paris like I have, I'm not sure it's worth buying the Tokyo version of this shoe yet. But there have been, in summary, some major improvements. I think the Elite foam is really nice. It's nice and bouncy. I think once I've broken this shoe in a bit more, it will get even better. I think that aliphatic TPU, the properties of that shoe, the durability, the energy return will only enhance the ride in this shoe. And I think, you know, if you're somebody who really likes that rockered ride compared to the more bouncy kind of vertical ride that you get with the Sky, you're going to love the Edge. But if you like a more bouncy shoe, something where you like when you land it may be a bit flatter and it just pings you up and forward, then I think the Sky Tokyo is the shoe to go for. So it's very confusing, I understand that, but break it down into simple terms. Do you like rockered ride? Do you like a flatter, bouncier vertical ride? Or do you like I said, a rockered ride that's going to roll you forward? Both are super light. Edge is lighter by 20 grams. That's something you might consider. More and more people are going for the Edge. I slightly prefer the Sky at the moment, I have to say. I like the bounce. I like that pitter-patter. Felt better going up hills in this shoe actually than the Edge. Be interesting to take them on a 5K and see which is the faster of the two shoes. The jury's out there, but slightly preferring the ride in the Sky Tokyo to the Edge Tokyo, but that's just the first impressions after running them a lot more before I truly decide. So hopefully that's been useful for you. Don't get fixated with this heel 4-foot strike nonsense. It's not about that. Yes, with the Edge, it does help you increase your cadence. Yes, with the Sky Tokyo, it does want you to increase your stride length, but it's not really about that so much. It's more about the geometry and the plate configuration and how that affects the ride. And that's what you should focus on, not those other things. I hope that makes sense. Love you all. See you soon. Bye bye.